Do you ever wonder how it's possible that a pipe can be almost entirely clean when you're jetting it and televising it, and then you get to the next pipe and it looks like this? That's what we're going to be talking about today. How does grease sometimes solidify in a particular location? So this is a pipe that we were asked to clean. The pipes upstream from this location were almost entirely spotless. And suddenly we got to this pipe and the next pipe after it, and this is what's in the pipe. So we're going to take a look at what typically causes this type of event. This is a picture of a couple of pieces of grease that we got out of this pipe. But basically, when we start hitting this pipe with some type of a water cutter, these chunks of grease come floating down. You have to be very careful because if you're not step cleaning this pipe and you're not prepared to catch this grease, if you cut off too much of it at once, you could cause a backup in that pipe as all this grease clogs. And if it gets past your capacity to catch it, or if you're not ready to vac it out and pull it out quick enough, you can end up clogging up something downstream, or even letting this grease get downstream can end up ruining the water treatment plants, scrubbers, and filters downstream. So just another key lesson there. So now we'll dive into what likely is causing the buildup of grease in this manner when you see it so suddenly, despite the pipes upstream being clean. So what you can't see on this map is there are several restaurants upstream from this particular section of pipe on this line. Now the line in front of the restaurants and immediately following the restaurant is almost spotless. But as you can see, this line eventually starts to run through a swamp area. Now, what's usually happening in these cases is that water coming out of these restaurants is warm, and there's a lot of water coming out of these restaurants all day long. And if they're not cleaning their grease traps regularly, that grease is getting into the water, but it's not solidifying because of all the hot water that they're dumping into the pipe. As long as that water is staying warm in the pipe, that grease typically doesn't solidify. However, in geography of this nature, as that pipe is running through these waterways, it is being cooled rapidly all at once. The pipe stays cool, contrasted with the other pipes, especially depending on the relative to the air temperature, right? So as that water hits this pipe that's surrounded by cool water, that grease suddenly solidifies, and it solidifies quickly. And once it solidifies, then it presents an opportunity for the water to slow down, especially during high flow environments, which you can see here. That's why you see all this grease up top. That when that water gets high, it starts to solidify up here at the high water mark. And the more grease that solidifies, the slower the water moves, which gives the water more time to cool down, which encourages more solidification of grease. And it's kind of a self-licking ice cream cone, and it can cause a lot of problems if it goes untreated. And when they call us to come in and treat it, if we don't do it well, if we don't remove this grease well, we can cause some emergency backup scenarios. So if you have grease in your line, it's not always helpful to look at what locations are immediately connected to that pipe. As you can see in this case, this was the pipe in question. It is not, there are no homes even on, there are no services on this pipe. But if you go upstream from the pipe and you see all the restaurants, now it makes sense. And then when you consider how the temperature of the pipe is affected by the water that surrounds it, and you understand how grease solidifies, now it all kind of comes together and makes sense. And the other lesson we want to walk away from here is, as you start cleaning these pipes, you need to make sure you're step cleaning these in the same way you would clean a very dirty pipe. Only a couple chunks at a time, because you've got to be ready to take a huge influx of grease downstream very suddenly as that grease breaks up. Because when it breaks up, it's not going to turn into finite particles and just float easily down the water or get caught easily in your strainer. Lots of cases it's hard, and so it's going to stay clumped together, but it will still float. And so even when your strainer catches it, if you catch too much of it at once and you're not prepared to pull it out, it can cause problems for you, and you can get a backup very quickly if you're not careful.